Shalom. Have you ever heard of a musical road? I didn't until quite recently. I personally never experienced traveling on a musical road, but apparently there's such a thing. A musical road is a road, or part of a road, which, when driven over, causes a tactile vibration and audible rumbling transmitted through the wheels into the car body in the form of a musical tune. Musical roads are known to exist in 6 countries: Denmark, Japan, South Korea, the United States of America, Mexico, and San Marino. I'm thinking particularly of the Civic Musical Road over in Lancaster, California, which is currently located, because they moved it, currently located on Avenue G between 30th Street West and 40th Street West in the far left lane of the westbound side of the road. If you drive over this section of the road at a desired speed of 55 miles per hour, as your car drives over the intervals of groove spacings that are cut into the asphalt, your car is supposed to be playing, and therefore you're supposed to be hearing, the finale of the William Tell Overture. You can listen to it on YouTube. Frankly, I think it's a bit of a stretch. But I was fascinated by the idea, in an abstract sort of way, of, while traveling through life, let's say, of the traveling itself generating music. Because really, there's music all around us, the universe is singing, we ourselves are hearing music all the time, or could be. We are even notes in the music, hopefully in harmony. As we move throughout life, we should not only be able to hear music, but we should strive to be the music, to be the notes. You are the music while the music lasts, wrote T.S. Eliot. This week's Torah portion of Parashat Shemini begins on the 8th day of the inauguration period of the tabernacle. This is the climax. This day is none other than Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the new moon of Nisan, the first day of the first month, according to Exodus 12. In many ways, everything has been leading up to this point. This is the day that's described in our holy tradition as such a great day, the day in which God's goal in creation altogether began to be fulfilled. For His presence was welcomed into this world. The tabernacle became a reality. It was the first day of the priestly service, the first day of the priestly blessing, the day upon which the divine fire descended from heaven upon the altar, the day that the Shekhinah, the divine presence, took up residence, so to speak, among the children of Israel. And all of this, of course, is the background to the tragic and untimely death of Nadav and Avihu, the sons of Aaron, who were so transfigured by the sheer ecstasy of God's presence, they erred in their understanding of how to live with that presence and incorporated it into everyday reality. The key verse, I think, I want to speculate with you now, key verse to understanding the admittedly indescribable events of this day, the key to understanding also much of the Torah portion, our Torah portion this week, that deals with the laws of kashrut, laws of kosher food that are misunderstood and mistakenly referred to as the Jewish dietary laws. And the key to understanding all of this is the last verse of chapter 9, verse 24. It states, "Fire went forth from before HaShem and consumed upon the altar the burnt offering and the fats, and the people saw and sang glad song and fell upon their faces." This is an amazing and singular expression in Hebrew, vayaronu. They sang glad song, vayaronu, vayapilu al pneihem. They fell upon their faces. The people, the entire nation, inspired by the reality of the living presence of God among them, in total humility, they fell on their faces. This is an indication of the nullification of the self. And they sang glad song because they heard the music of the universe. They heard the soundtrack that became the music. And basically the entire chapter 11 of our Torah portion, Shemini, this week, deals with the laws of kashrut, the laws of keeping kosher, of eating kosher. It's a total misunderstanding to label or to think of these laws as the kosher dietary laws, because it's actually so much more than a diet and more than a healthy lifestyle that it's absurd to call it that. By calling it a diet prescribed by the Torah for Israel, it's like asserting that these laws only had bearing maybe because of a certain time or certain conditions. And it's as if it's only about, something physical, maybe sanitation or the prevention of disease. It's like, what did the ignorant Reform rabbis say? Oh, we don't need these laws nowadays because we have refrigeration. See, once again, Torah is not about do's and don'ts and restrictions and legalese. It's about enabling us to be able to hear the music with no barrier, no restriction, the song of the universe. And these laws in this week's Torah portion, the laws of kashrut, of the kosher foods, they represent a different worldview than most people are used to. It's like the difference between seeing everything as being all about me. What's in it for me? It's all about me as in my pleasure. I'm the center, which also implies the minimalization of everything else but me and my self-centered non-responsibility for both myself and the world around me. The laws of kashrut are on the wavelength of what if everything, again, every thought, every deed and word has significance. It all means something. And not only something, but so much that everything is about cause and effect. Everything is registered, and it makes its mark forever, both on the individual and on the cosmos. And indeed, this is a very basic understanding of Torah, that everything certainly does have meaning. Now, eating is a very spiritual, very powerful endeavor. It has great potential for both holiness and for total undoing, for unraveling, for dehumanization. And we are taught that every level of creation contains a divine spark that's hidden, the spiritual essence, if you will, the soul of everything. And what we eat is no exception. And in fact, in Torah thought, the reason that eating can be a powerful spiritual tool and lead potentially to holiness is because we have the ability, through eating with the proper intention, through eating the proper things, to elevate the divine sparks that are hidden in these levels of creation by eating in purity, by thanking and recognizing God as the provider of our needs, and by eating with the proper intention. When we eat in this manner, we peel away layers of concealment that cover over the holy essence. And just as the physical aspect of the food nourishes our bodies, the spiritual aspect nourishes our souls, and actually, in turn, we can elevate, can literally redeem the hidden aspect of holiness within the seemingly dormant level of the inanimate food that we eat, and thus strengthen the song of the universe. But some things, some foods, they have negative spiritual energy. Divine presence is hidden in these things. The creepy crawlers, they come from dank and dark places of concealment that are far from the honor of HaShem. Some foods have this negative spiritual energy, and not only can the essence of these foods not be elevated, but they're so dense that they cause one who eats them to lose ground spiritually. They bring a person down. They literally cloud the mind and dull the senses, and they erect a barrier between our souls and God. And that's what the rules of kashrut are really all about. The Torah states in our parsha, "You shall not make yourselves abominable with any creeping creature that creeps. You shall not defile yourselves with them, that you should become unclean through them. For I am HaShem your God, I am the Lord your God, and you shall sanctify yourselves and be holy, because I am holy. And you shall not defile yourselves through any creeping creature that crawls on the ground. For I am the Lord, who brought you up from the land of Egypt to be your God. Thus, you shall be holy, because I am holy." Everything that we do and don't do, God is telling us, is an aspect of our responsibility to Him, to keep ourselves in a fit condition for the mission with which we've been entrusted. God says in verse 44 here, he uses the word vihit kadishtem, which we have here translated as, thus you shall be holy. But actually, what it really means, the Hebrew usage, vihit kadishtem, it means work, endeavor at making yourselves holy. Put all your energy into that task and fight against anything that stands in your way. Vihit kadishtem, he promises, if you will do that, you will become holy, because the natural opposition inside of you will diminish more and more. The internal struggle against your base animal drive, that's what these laws are all about. It will become less and less, so that ultimately you will reach the state where something that's impure and ignoble, which could pull you down and away from God, it's going to lose its attraction for you. I am holy, God states, and your reaching of an ideal state means freedom from these forces that bind you. That's the reason that I took you out of Egypt in the first place. He's saying right here in these verses, for you to work at becoming holy. And if you work at becoming holy, the promise is, you shall become holy, because I am holy, God says. And if you want to be near me, you have to be in harmony with me. But really, the life within man, it says in Genesis, Vayipach be'apav nishmat chayim. Remember in the Genesis narrative, God says, it says, he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. The life within us is the breath of life breathed into our nostrils by God. And with that breath, these laws of kashrut, what are they doing? They're raising us above physical compulsion. They are protecting our very sensuousness from the possibility of unrestrained animal passion. God, through these laws, is bequeathing to Israel the power of being self-determinating, of being able to master over the pettiness of our own material nature. And they're beckoning to us. God is saying, as I reign over the world, you can reign over yourselves. But the bottom line is that eating these forbidden foods leads one to become dull and desensitized. And the Torah is warning us here, don't make your souls an abomination, and don't defile yourselves. It's two different things, two different aspects of the same thing. What does it mean? Don't make your souls an abomination, and don't defile yourselves. The eating of these foods, the forbidden foods, increases a desire to be satisfied by things that are prohibited by the will of God. And at the same time, they bring about a state of tuma, which is generally translated as impurity, but really in this context it means something that affects the whole of the person. It's a person who becomes dulled by these things begins to lose the clarity of moral freedom that remains open to us. Yes, the Torah teaches that our very morality is weakened by eating things that are forbidden by the will of God. And to make the soul abominable means that it arouses and increases these desires. And this impurity means that we are no longer masters over ourselves, but rather we become slaves to our most base passions. This whole thing, it's not about taste, I wish I could have that, but it's not kosher. It's not about pleasure. It's not about anything so small. The verse here concludes that if we do eat these things, it says here, V'nitmetem bam. V'nitmetem bam is translated as, you will become contaminated through them. But what it really means is become completely ruined. That's the effect that these things can have. So this is the diet of Israel, right? For many years, I've had the honor and privilege of teaching Torah, not only to Jews, but to non-Jews, to many Gentiles who have come to love the God of Israel and His Torah. These righteous souls who simply seek to please God and to follow His commandments to the best of their abilities, they go through many difficult trials in coming to Torah. Many times I've met these beautiful people, non-Jews who come to Torah, and I've asked them, met people from all different backgrounds that are very different and varied, and they come from far away, and sometimes they were raised in diametric opposition to the values of Torah, and even raised with attitudes that are predisposed against the teachings of Torah, against Israel, and yet with great dedication and love and commitment and integrity and true spiritual bravery, they leave pagan ideas behind and become completely new. They take a bold stand for the God of Israel, sometimes at great personal cost. Sometimes the price that non-Jews pay to attach themselves to Torah is the alienation of family, of children or grandchildren or parents. Yet they're undeterred in their spiritual odyssey, their journey of walking towards a relationship with the God of Israel. So it's such an unbelievable thing, you know, and I can't count how many times I've asked people, how did you manage to break away from false and idolatrous notions? How did you have the courage to turn your back on the falsehoods that you had been taught? What separated you from others? How did you start beginning to develop this relationship with the one God of Israel? How did it begin? If you could recall a turning point. And people have said, you know, well, I started to read the Tanakh, and even though I was discouraged from asking questions, you know, I started to ask questions, began to confront difficult doctrinal or theological issues and demand answers. But invariably, people always say, you know, how this started for me? So I'll quote from one letter that I received, where a woman writes, what opened my eyes, how I was able to begin to see, I started eating clean. Like the Torah says, even though maybe it's only Israel who God commands, obviously, it can't be good for you if he doesn't like it, if he doesn't want it for his people. And she writes, and then, once I stopped eating those things that the Torah calls abomination, my whole level of understanding changed. It's like the scales were removed from my eyes, and I was able to understand Torah on a completely different level. She writes, it's like HaShem was really speaking to me clearly. I'm still quoting from the letter. She says this sentence, she says, once I began to be careful to eat only clean, it's like I could hear the music of the universe. And this is the goal of the Torah, that there should be no separation between us and our connection to HaShem, so that we can always hear the music of the universe.